All of the Salesforce hype right now is around Agentforce. They've had some very specific announcements, and I'm actually going to take you through in depth and talk to you about what's going on behind the scenes so that you get a better understanding of this whole Agentforce thing. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Salesforce for Recruiters. My name's Brad Owens, and I was just like you. I was a recruiter for well over 10 years, using various pieces of technology that never really fit what I wish they could do for my business. And then I saw Salesforce, and I went, where has this been all my life? And since then, I've been dedicating my career to helping both Salesforce and recruiters understand what they need to know about this platform and how it can impact recruiting. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about Salesforce's big announcements and all of their energy that they're putting towards a thing called Agentforce. Now, Agentforce is a digital labor platform. So look back at some of the other episodes that I've done to learn a little bit more about what Agentforce can truly do for you. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about this digital labor and how it can work alongside your recruiters and how it may actually be able to help them do their job better and faster. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go through two specific examples of actual agents doing work in recruiting. One of which Salesforce actually announced at they called it Agentforce 2.0 event that they did. They went through an actual recruiting use case based on Adecco, one of the largest recruiting firms in the world. They show how Adecco may make use of Agentforce. And then I'm going to take you through the actual Asymbl recruiter agent so you can see how that would work in a different type of system. All right, so first up here, we're going to look at the Adecco example. And I've brought up the video of the actual stream where they showed this demonstration at their Agentforce 2.0 announcement. So you're going to hear the product team kind of describe the problem that Adecco's facing. See if this is something like you're facing or that you've heard of before. I'm sure that you've dealt with this before. And then we'll talk a little bit about the use cases. So here you go.
Why don't we go ahead and show you a little bit here. I'll start off with something that everybody is probably at one point of their life experienced something like this. You're looking for a job, okay? And when you have 300 million applications a year, that's a lot of inbound, right? This is an experience that a lot of us, hopefully you haven't had. You might send an email in, not get a response. Maybe you have to follow up, maybe send a couple applications in, no response. It's not a great experience from a candidate. Nobody wants this. Adecco doesn't want this, but this is the reality because on the other side of this, what does it look like? Hiring managers and recruiters are inundated. Too much inbound, too many applications. How can they scale the personal one-on-one touch? It's impossible. 300 million is nearly a million a day. So how did Adecco do it?
So let's define the problem then. Here is Adecco's problem. Adecco, in this example, had a person that was applying for the exact same job multiple different times. And when they flipped over to this spreadsheet is how a lot of us recruiters actually handle our day, right? We have one potential spreadsheet for one type of job, and then we put every single candidate in there, and that's how we're kind of tracking people. I used to have it as tabs, which you can see down here, where they took the tabs and put them all across the bottom. They clearly had someone who was from recruiting help them with this demonstration. I wonder who that could have been. And then now that they have all of this information, how are they going to combine all of this and make the recruiter's job easier with Agentforce? And that's where they're going now.
Well, they created an agent. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an agent right now.
Now, let me give you an idea of where you're at in the Salesforce system. So right now, you can tell that they are in the setup screen of Salesforce. Now, this is typically somewhere where an admin who is helping you set up your system would actually be. This isn't where the end user would end up messing with these things. But what they're going to go into in depth here is show you behind the scenes what it takes to actually create one of these agents so that it can help you do your job. So that's where they're at now.
Very similar to what Adecco did to show you how this is an unlock for anything. So we're going to go ahead and hit New Agent. And the first thing you're going to see is those skills. These are the bundles of functionality, the agentic capacity that you can start using to build your agent. Now, lead development from Sales Cloud, this is very similar to recruiting, right? You've got leads that you might do outbound to, then you've got to talk about your products and services, you've got to qualify them and introduce them to a seller as a warm lead, right?
So what he goes on to talk about here, I'm going to skip past this part, but I want to summarize this for you. What you're seeing here in this section of creating an agent is they're showing you skills that agents can have. So if you're going out and listing skills on a job description, this is what you're going to put together as the agent and the digital labor that's actually going to help you do your job. Now, skills, what they're showing you here are the ones that are included out of the box with Salesforce. Now, Salesforce is their primary product, is more of a sales focused function. So they've got lead development, they've got sales coach, they've got customer service, they've got those types of things that are really good for the core Salesforce products. But what they're missing here and what he's trying to explain to you is that a lead in a sales environment could be going after a potential job for us recruiters. We could go after a warm job. Hey, if that thing is a good lead for us, a good job to work on, it can come into our system and we have to work through a very specific set of steps to then make that a job order and then start recruiting against that job. So what he's trying to explain here is that out of the box, they do have lead development. They do have some skills that are kind of similar to what recruiters may use, but it might not be perfect for you. However, where the platform is going in the future is they're going to allow third-party skills and actions, which we're going to get into in a little bit. So that's where the Asymbl applicant tracking system and the Asymbl agent suite is going to start helping. So these skills that you see here, if you're using the Asymbl agent suite, you're going to have skills related to exactly what you do, whether it's recruiting or any other business services type industry. You're going to have skills that relate to actually what you do. That's where it's going to change. But based on what they have available today, that's why you're seeing just the out-of-the-box stuff from Salesforce. So I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. What he tries to explain is how this relates to recruiting, but it would be a little too easy just to start with one of these skills. So we're going to move on and actually create one from scratch. Let me see if I can find that section for you.
We're going to create one from scratch, okay? We're going to create one from scratch because I want to show you something that's really cool. And that is that we can create an agent just by telling it what we want to do in natural language. So in this case, we're a recruiter, right? We want to be able to talk to the candidates over email, interface to the applicant tracking system that's not inside of Salesforce outside, to look for the perfect job openings, figure out what those job openings are about, and ultimately connect them to schedule, maybe with with a recruiter, etc.
So let's take a minute and pause and see what he just said there. He's talking about the purpose of this agent. What are you going to be? And in this case, it's going to make a recruiter actual agent. But one key distinction that he made in there is you're going to have to interface with the applicant tracking system that's not in Salesforce. What they're explaining is the extra layer of complexity that Data Cloud and other tools that Salesforce has may have to solve for in order to make this process work. So what they're showing today is Salesforce exists over here, but their applicant tracking system exists way over here. That's a big pain point in the industry right now because we have our CRM and our ATS essentially as different platforms. That is what the Asymbl applicant tracking system actually solves. The Asymbl recruiter suite solves that by bringing everything inside Salesforce. So all of the complexities and all the added steps that you're going to see them have to do today are non-existent if you use the Asymbl recruiter suite. That's what I'm trying to preach to everyone and show you all that what they're showing, yes, it may seem very simple, but behind the scenes, these connections that they have to make are large-scale engagements to get people's ATS and their CRM connected in such a way that it's actually going to make sense. But what we've found through doing a lot of these different migrations and essentially just bringing people into the Salesforce ecosystem even deeper is that the pain and complexity involved with taking your ATS and combining it with your CRM and trying to make that connection through software, that's incredibly difficult, and it doesn't actually lend itself to what these agents are able to do. So the best companies moving forward don't have that complexity. They're bringing all of their applicant tracking system and all of those processes into Salesforce to eliminate that layer of complexity. So that's what the Asymbl Recruiter Suite will actually end up doing for you. So that's what I wanted to call out here is that, hey, he mentioned that there is an external ATS they have to connect to make all this work. They don't show that part because that's the hard part. But everything else you see is still possible, whether or not you have your ATS existing externally or you bring everything into Salesforce. It's just going to be far easier if it's all in Salesforce.
So let's go ahead and hit start or next. And what's happening in the background is that all of the data that we have, all of our enterprise data sources, all the processes that we have, the flows, the Apex, everything that we built in is being scanned for the use case that we typed in. And it recommends what you can include kind of out of the box for skills. But beyond that, in fact, let's actually talk about a couple of these. So analyze data from Tableau. That sounds pretty great. Maybe we want to understand what's happening in our pipeline for candidates. There's that lead development, by the way, that's been now kind of modified. It's very smart now for candidates. So we could keep that in there. Appointment scheduling from Service Cloud. Understands my calendar, can schedule recruits as a hiring manager. That's fantastic. But I want to point out this one, because this one's different. This one is AI generated, okay? So not only is it really amazing that I didn't have to code anything at this point, I described what I wanted. It scanned all of the library of skills that we provide, all my data, all my flows, all my existing integrations. But it understood for my use case, which was recruiting, that there was a gap. And even I had a lot of stuff in Salesforce, there was a gap. That said, I'm going to generate a new skill for you right now for this one use case. All right, and it is about what? Pre-qualification. So let's go ahead.
So let's talk about these skills that it automatically found in this particular example. All of these come from different products inside the Salesforce lineup. So I mentioned in my last video how Salesforce Foundations is really going to power what's possible, because Salesforce Foundations gives you a little bit of all these different Salesforce offerings so that you can empower what they're showing today. And this is the prime example. This now gives you the ability, because you're have part of Service Cloud, you can schedule appointments. And because you have parts of Marketing Cloud, you can do candidate outreach. So you can see how all of these foundations are actually making themselves useful so that you can use those in your agents and what you're building. He also mentioned that it's pulling from all of the integrations and all the actions and things that are in your available library. If you make use of the Asymbl Agent Suite, you have these types of actions and types of things that you can take advantage of when building your agents. That's why third-party actions and the topics that are provided from third parties are going to be so incredibly powerful inside Salesforce, and why you need to look at the Asymbl Recruiter Suite and the Asymbl Agents Suite so that you can make these types of things possible.
And open up that skill. Now, inside of skills, you have actions and you have instructions, if you kind of recall. So we have a handful of actions that are getting suggested here, and we can see that we've got some flows and a MuleSoft, a couple MuleSoft there. So get job details, that is going to connect us through MuleSoft to our applicant tracking system, and recommended job postings. I think these look pretty great as a way to ultimately find the right job.
So where did he find all those actions? All of those actions came with those products that he's mentioning here. So he mentions MuleSoft. MuleSoft is a Salesforce product that allows you to connect two different endpoints. I'm highly dumbing this down, but there's far more complex than this. But MuleSoft can take two endpoints that typically don't connect together and help them connect. That's the basics of what it can do. There's far more complexity to it, but that's the basics. So what he's trying to say is we have to connect to different systems to get these details and to get these job postings. These are all things that you have to custom create that do have to be coded unless you're inside the Salesforce ecosystem already. So if you have the Asymbl Recruiter Suite, you have the ability to actually create all of these things just automatically. You don't have to create all these MuleSoft connections and topics and actions. All those come included out of the box. So this becomes far easier for you.
And qualify them. Yeah, let's go ahead and hit next. The next step beyond actions is how to use them. Instructions, again, I want to point out, there's no code right now, natural language. So this is when we get to describe how to do this job, how to do this skill with those actions. And the answer is going to say, based on the description, find the right job. When you find a job, ultimately kind of look at the qualifications, get some of the questions. If they seem qualified, pass them on and schedule. That looks great. So let's go ahead and hit next. And then last, with the setup here, what channels is this going to operate on? An agent's going to operate over any channel. But in this case, let's connect it to Slack. Talk to recruiters. Let's connect it to email to talk to the candidates. And hit next. And then data is the last thing. When we go ahead and move forward, and there's been two enterprise data sources here that the agent will have as well. That's been suggested.
There we go. I can't skip over that. That's where Data Cloud and all of your integrations will actually start coming in handy. So Data Cloud, when he says data source, where are we taking this data from that this agent can actually learn from and manipulate and work with? That's where Data Cloud comes in. That's Salesforce's actual endpoint connection system. I mean, I'm trying to dumb this down so it doesn't get super complex, but essentially when you think about where all of your data exists, you probably have your resumes sitting in a huge database over here. You probably have your jobs sitting in your ATS over here. You have your sales process and all those connections in a CRM somewhere else. You have data that's strewn all about. And what Data Cloud allows you to do is through not making additional copies. We're not taking these resumes and then putting them also here so you have data in two places. We're using what they call their zero copy Data Cloud framework, where it's looking at other locations rather than copying that data somewhere else so that you have duplicate data. So that's what Data Cloud was able to do. And it also gives you the ability to connect to different integrations. So you saw there that they were selecting like their SMS partner, their phone partner, all of these things that you wish would be integrated into a single system that you yourself have to use. You're giving the ability for the agent to then use that. So the agent has access to texting, and the agent has access to email, and the agent has access to Slack. I'm going to show you why that's important coming up.
Just kind of generic information about the process. So we are ready to create this agent just with natural language and combining skills that existed from Salesforce, from the App Exchange ecosystem, and even generating new skills on the fly. So we can hit next, and what this is going to do is drop us right into Agent Builder. But Agent Builder, not with a blank slate, it's Agent Builder with the kind of the set of all of those skills together and the topics here that we can continue to do the last mile. So we can finish testing, developing, and ultimately publish this agent out. So building agents for every team and every workflow is faster than ever and doesn't require you to become a developer. All right.
So this, what they're showing you here, is the actual Agentforce builder. And this is inside the setup screen that I showed you before. This is, again, another way that admins, I don't expect end users to do this, admins and consulting partners will actually help you set up your agents to be what you need them to be on your platform. So this is the Agentforce builder. Here on the left-hand side, you can see that this is what they've selected topics. And now you have the ability to see the topics that this individual agent is going to be responsible for. So anytime one of these types of topics comes up, this agent is going to take over these things. So they're essentially building based on the actions and the topics that were assigned to it. They're building a new agent and a new digital labor agent that can take these topics off of the recruiter's plate. So this is what you're seeing. This is the builder. This is where the majority of your time is going to be spent when you're creating an actual agent. Funny enough, they skip right over this part and show it in action, but this is where the majority of an admin's time and a consultant's time will be spent. And this is where engaging with the right kind of partner for Salesforce will help you tremendously. The Asymbl Consulting Group is actually one that will help you do this exact thing because they're Agentforce certified. So something to keep in mind is that this is where the majority of the time is going to be spent. You need to have a really good partner that's going to help you through this.
Right? So what we want to do is fast forward a little bit in time, all right? Because now what we want to show is what is it like to use this agent, not just to build it. And Adecco has millions of these applications coming in, and how do we want this to be proactive? Before, remember the spreadsheet, all right, that the recruiters are going through? Now they get a notification in Slack. Hey.
That's what they're currently using. So here you're going to see that this is Slack. I mentioned in my last video how Slack is going to be so important to the new user interface, the new user experience for how Salesforce expects you to interact with your data and interact with your ATS. And this is what is going to transform how you interact with not only the people you work with, but your digital labor and with the actual information that exists inside your applicant tracking system. Because there's got to be some data for it to learn from somewhere, right? So this is what they envision as the future. I think what they're about to show you is quite far off. It's possible, totally possible. Given the amount of data that you can create, this type of experience is completely possible today. It's just going to take a lot of work. So I'm going to show you how we can actually get to this point and kind of the intermediary step that I think most of you watching will actually want to take first before you get to this level. But this is a fantastic painting the vision of the future of what is possible.
There are some candidates that I'd like you to review for a particular job. And I can see here that, like, so let's say Simone is recommending, it's understanding some history here that Simone has applied for a similar role, it looks like, and done well. And what we can do is we can ask more. We can say, hey, for this project manager job, it looks like we'd like to ask more, but maybe we just want to move forward with Simone and say, can you help me? Can you help me schedule? Can you take the next step? kind of be an assistant to me. And the agent is going to happily do that. And when it reaches out, because it has that scheduling skill, it knows who I am, it knows my free busy time on my calendar, it can now start having a conversation asynchronously with Simone about the right times that I'm available and ultimately book a meeting on my calendar on my behalf, which is pretty great. That saves me a lot of time. But now when I'm actually doing this, and I know none of us go into meetings and prepare right before those meetings, I know that never happens. But in this case, we've got a lot of interviews, right? 300 million applications a year, okay? So why don't we want to prep for that interview? So we can actually ask for some questions to prep. Now the difference here is that it has a lot of context, because this is about a project manager job. In the case of Adecco, that job is from one of the 100,000 customers, okay? So the job requirements and everything about it isn't one static thing. It depends on who that job is for. So it's contextual to that. It also understands who Simone is in terms of the resume and whatever happened in the email conversation to even get to this point. Maybe some of those questions were even kind of answered. So I'm going to be able to pull all that context back to prep very quickly. And this is the kind of symbiotic aspect of humans and agents being able to work together.
That is incredibly significant. Humans and agents working together. I want to show you here that when they were talking to your recruitment advisor, they had a face associated with this. They had a person, a persona that was created as the recruitment advisor. This is the agent that they created so that we showed you a little earlier. Now, this recruitment advisor, they are interacting with them as if they are on their team. This isn't some AI that exists beside them. They're interacting with them as a team member. And what they're going to go on and show you here is that the vision is that this will be a full Agentforce team. This is digital labor that you can use in your business. This is someone that you've trained to do a very particular skill for you, and you can take advantage of them in the course of work, in this case, inside of Slack. So if you're a forward-thinking company who is moving on to the Slack platform, which I think you should think about doing, and want to take advantage of Agentforce and their digital label platform, this is what it's going to make possible. This is why I stress so much that you've got to get your data inside Salesforce if you want to take advantage of all of this stuff. That's why I say what I say. This is what it's going to make possible.
That is just absolutely phenomenal. And of course, what we're showing you right now is kind of like a single agent, but the reality is this is a multi-agent future. That you're going to have a team of agents. It's your agent force. And when you think about a team working together, there's no better place to work with us than where we already work, which is Slack.
Exactly. So what he just closed that with is that you're going to have a number of different agents. So let me go back to this very specific spot in the video. You see all of these different agents that are here on this screen. So these agents can be both Salesforce agents and third-party agents. So if you want an out-of-the-box recruiter agent, a scheduling agent, an engagement specialist, all these things that they showed you, you need to take advantage of the Asymbl Agent Suite because they come out of the box ready to go, trained on the skills that recruitment companies are going to need and internal recruiters are going to need to be able to fill the roles that they've got. That's where third parties will come in and how this is going to be such a powerful solution for you. So if Salesforce just showed you the art of the possible, and when you start moving forward into a Slack first organization and start to have all of your data in a single system and start to use Agentforce and use Data Cloud and use Slack, if that's what's possible into the future, then what's kind of the intermediary step? What I see a lot in the recruiting industry is a lot of people want to get to that point, but they don't have the foundation laid yet to be able to make that possible. So what I'm going to show you now is more of that intermediary step. If I were you and I wanted to get to the future where I could be using everything in Slack and use these agents to just interact with me in my course of the day, where do I think my employees and my business needs to go in the meantime to be able to get there while also giving you the foundation to take advantage of when you do get into Slack? So I'm going to take you through and show you the Asymbl Recruiter Agent built on top of some actions and some topics that you can get out of the box with the Asymbl Agent Suite. So I'm going to show you that now. So here I am inside of Salesforce. This is where I do all of my recruiting. This is how I keep track of all of my jobs. You can see I've got many different jobs that I'm working on here. I've got all of my reporting down here that I can help organize my day and work through. But I'm working on a number of different positions. And for today, I feel like for our demonstration, let's focus on the staff accountant role right here. So I'm going to dig into the staff accountant role. And what you're going to see is I've got lots of different information on this role. And on the right-hand side, I have the ability to interact with Agentforce. Now, in order to do our job effectively as recruiters, we need to know a number of different pieces of information about a job. And here, there's kind of two key things that I need. I need a job description, but a job description is actually missing from this job right here. So let's start there. So how could you then generate a job description? Well, that's where we're going to have our digital labor help us. We're going to talk to the Asymbl recruiter agent and ask it, hey, can you write up a job description for us? Now, how would it be able to do this? Well, we filled a number of different staff accountant roles. It also has the context to know that this is Thrive Solutions. We know that our client, Thrive Solutions, we know that our client, Thrive Solutions, typically likes to see some specific things about accountants. So we're going to include that in our job description. As a matter of fact, if we go and edit our description over here, the agent came up with a description that should fit pretty well for a staff accountant at our Thrive Solutions client. So with a couple clicks, I can then save that to the job, and I'm going to give it a second because what it's doing is it's adding the job description to our job here. So we've got that. Our agent was able to know enough from the context to create our job description. Now, what do we also need to know as recruiters? Well, we also need to know what our hiring manager prefers to see in the candidates that we present. So our hiring manager here, and by the way, we're using the Asymbl applicant tracking system, which is why we have all of this inside of one system here in Salesforce. So we have our hiring manager, Byron. And Byron's an individual that we know a few things about. And we've been working with Byron for a number of years. So you can see we've had a number of different interviews with him. He's been the hiring manager on a number of different jobs that we've worked on. So we have enough information to know what Byron's going to want to see in the applicants that we present. But instead of me having to be the one that goes back and reviews all this information to understand what Byron's going to want to see, I can ask my agent. So I can say, what should I know about the hiring manager? Now, see, I only asked it about hiring manager. What it's doing is it's understanding from context that the hiring manager on this job is Byron. I didn't have to ask it about a specific person. It knows because of the record that we're on, you need to look at Byron. So it went through Byron's background, all of those different records that I showed you, and automatically it went through Byron's background and came up with all of the things that it knows Byron looks for in applicants, and it gave us all of that information here. So now I, as a recruiter, am armed with that information just from asking my agent a simple question with what I need to find in our applicants to make sure Byron's going to be excited about them. So now that I understand that, I need to look through all my applicants and find those types of candidates. So here we are inside of our job board applicants. This is everyone that's applied for a particular job. They're all inside the same system because we're using that applicant tracking system, the Asymbl applicant tracking system inside Salesforce. But you can see I've got 96 applicants that I'd have to go through. It's the bane of my existence when I was a recruiter. I used to hate having to review all the new applicants that came in every single day. I shouldn't have to do that though. We're using Agentforce. I've got an agent that's sitting here on the job with me. It now already knows what Byron likes to see, and it's got the job description. It's got everything that I would know about a particular job in order to find the right candidates. Let's just ask it. Hey, agent, do any of these applicants have those skills that Byron's looking for? So it's going to search through all of those 96 candidates and see who might be a good possible fit. And you can see it came up with two. It came up with Richard and Philippa here. Now I want to add these two as candidates to this job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of my candidates, and you can see I've got an action down here. That's what these little bars are. These little buttons down here are actions inside of the Agentforce interface, and this is what comes included with the Recruiter Agent Suite. And this is what comes included with the Asymbl Agent Suite are these actions that you can add to create your recruiter agent. So here we go. We can add them to the ATS. That's all I said. Just add them to the ATS. Now, again, through context, it understands which job we're on, what we've been asking up until now. So if I move over to my actual applicant tracking system, look who's waiting for us, both Richard and Philippa. So this agent knew from context where to put them, and it actually added them to the right job. So now I need to take the next step. I need to start moving on to schedule interviews with these potential candidates. So let's focus on Philippa here. And Philippa's in our long list stage. We need to move her over to shortlist. We need to schedule an interview. My goodness, that used to take a ton of time, right? But again, I have an agent. I have someone on my team already that specializes in doing these things. So I can ask it a question. Hey, can you schedule an interview with this candidate, Philippa, for tomorrow? Now think about all the different things it's going to need to know. It's going to need to know Philippa's email. It's going to need to know my availability in my calendar. It's going to need to know all those different things, but it does know that because it's all contained in the same system. So it goes through, it looks at my calendar for tomorrow. It understands how long I typically need for an interview, and it comes up with a few different slots for me to have an interview. I can select what ones are best for me and just click share with candidate. It knows which candidate I'm talking about. It knows what type of email to send. All those actions are included out of the box with the Asymbl Agent Suite. So now it has sent out that scheduling email to Philippa. And you can see, if you noticed, Philippa moved automatically through our system. I didn't have to drag and drop her. I didn't have to trigger anything. I just had to ask for that next step to occur and for it to help me out. And it did. It's the power of these agents. These agents understand what to do with all the data that I'm giving it. Now, Burke. Burke is someone who's interviewing for a number of different positions. He's been in this process a little bit longer, and now I'd like to understand more about how these interviews have gone. So Burke has interviewed with my internal team. If I need to understand all those different interviews and what happened, I need to email all those people, maybe call them on the phone, maybe invite them into my office. We'd have a long conversation, but all this information about Burke and those interviews exists in this system. This agent has access to that. So what I can do instead is just ask, can you summarize all the feedback for Burke? Now it knows, based on the job that I'm on, what feedback I'm looking for, and it will come up with some summaries of those conversations for Burke. And it even added on a special little bit here. Is this person recommended to move on? Yep. So it saw that all this information was positive from these interviewers, and now it recommends that we move Burke through the system. So what's our next step as recruiters? Our next step is to send this person out to the hiring manager. Well, we'd have to do a lot of research and make sure we write a really good email to do that. So let's dig into Burke here. So Burke is another person we know a little bit about. We've been working with Burke for a number of years. We've placed him on a number of different potential roles that he's worked at for us. He's interviewing for a number of different things. We know all the different jobs that he's applied for. So we've got a good understanding of what Burke brings to the table. If I were to write an email about Burke to send to the hiring manager, I'd have to know all this information myself. I'd have to do the research. I'd have to write that potential candidate introduction email. We're not going to do that. We're going to go back to our job here, and we're just going to ask our agent, can you submit Burke Kelly to the hiring manager? That's all we're going to tell it. It understands through context who the hiring manager is. Again, that's Byron. It understands what Burke is all about because we've given it all that data to learn from. And it writes up an email that, just like the job description, we can review, make sure it has those types of things that we want in that email, and we can send it off with just a click. So I wanted to show you more inside of Salesforce, what's possible with agents. So using the Asymbl Agent Suite and using the recruiter agent that I showed you, all of those actions, all of those topics, all of those interactions that we had with this agent are all possible, not just inside of Salesforce, but they're also able to be done inside that Slack experience that they showed you for that Adecco example. Now, the reason I wanted to show you inside your ATS what's possible is because I feel like it's a little bit better of a stopgap for recruiters and for both recruiting organizations and internal recruiters alike. I feel like that's a better stopgap right now so that they can get a little bit more comfortable with what these agents can do and what your digital label will be able to help them with, while in the context of what they're already comfortable with. But all those actions that I showed you, everything that that agent can do is also possible inside of Slack. So if you're a Slack first organization, you have the ability to do all the same things that I showed you with your digital labor inside of Slack. So I hope that gives you a little bit better understanding of what's possible with Agentforce inside of Salesforce land. And I have to say Salesforce land because we showed you Slack and we showed you Salesforce. We showed you both what's possible with these agents and what sort of use cases you can look forward to today if you're able to implement these in your system. The things that I showed you were the Asymbl Agent Suite, which you can look up online. I'll give you links to. We also use the Asymbl Recruiter Suite, which is the ATS along with all those different tools that I showed showed you. All of that can be found at asymbl.com. It's asymbl.com. If you got any more questions related to this, feel free to send them my way. My email is hello@bradowens.com. So it's hello@bradowens.com. And if you want to find more videos like this where we talk all about what's possible in the Salesforce ecosystem for recruiting, you can find those at salesforceforrecruiters.com. Until next time, thank you so much for paying attention to this video and watching all the way through to the end. I'm Brad Owens. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.